It is late at night. A watchman runs terrified through the forest until he reaches the road and is brutally hit by a car. Jamie Pena, a police commissioner, is called in to investigate the case. The watchman is still alive, and the ambulance takes him to the hospital, where he remains in a coma. But that's not the most interesting thing that happened today. That same night, the body of Mica Villaverde, a successful female pharmacist, disappeared from the morgue. She also had successful investments in other technology companies, as well as joint businesses with her two sisters, Luna Villaverde and Gloria. She died the day she arrived from a business trip to California, presumably of a heart attack. The next odd thing is that all the cameras have been turned off except the one directed at the Guardian, which shows him walking from the lobby to the morgue, then fleeing in terror 5 minutes later. It is also known that Mica was married to a young chemistry teacher, Alex Ulloa, who, before her death, was appointed director of the laboratory. The man now successfully plays the role of the inconsolable widower to Mica's relatives, but as soon as they leave, he goes to the apartment of his young lover, Carla, and tells her that the job is done. Now that his wife is dead, they can finally be together. They decide to have a drink, but someone keeps calling Alex. Eventually, he picks up the phone, and it's the police. They inform him about his wife's missing body. Carla gets upset and asks him if he is sure that his wife is dead, and he confirms. Inspector Jamie speculates that it was neither vandalism nor organ trafficking, nor does it look like a cult affair. The only option left is a personal motive, someone who hated her so much that they wanted to harm her with something macabre. The detective reveals that the police paid him a visit in order to take him to the morgue, but he wasn't home. Jamie asks Alex where he was at that time, and the widower confesses that he went to the drugstore. Later, when Alex is alone in the office, he calls his lover and tells her what is going on. She starts to panic, thinking that they've been exposed. Next, Dr. Tapia arrives at the morgue and says that there were no preconditions for Mica's heart attack except that it could have been triggered by aerophobia, about which Alex had told her. However, the doctor can't confirm this. On the other hand, the inspector has his own version. Someone kidnapped Mica's body to hide some crucial evidence and suspects the young widower, who lost his dearest person and already talks about her in the past tense. The inspector himself lost his beloved wife 10 years ago in a car crash, but still speaks about her as if she were alive. Meanwhile, the light in the building goes out, and Alex hears a strange rustling from the morgue. Entering it, he sees in his wife's empty cell a box with her personal belongings and next to it a vial of liquid, which he put into his wife's glass of wine 8 hours before her death. In fact, in a flashback, we see how Alex takes the glass of wine upstairs to the mansion, where Mica is taking a bath. Since it's 9 o'clock in the morning, he doesn't drink. They kiss, but he has to go to the lab. Mica reminds him that he can do whatever he wants because he's the director. Still, Alex leaves, and he sees that she drinks the wine. Soon after, Mica makes a phone call and cancels the meeting Alex was supposed to go to. He is angry, but she laughs and tells him to book a table at any restaurant for dinner. Later, the police join him and notice the open locker and the box of her personal belongings, from which, according to the list, her cell phone is missing. This leads to a search of the widower, during which Inspector Jamie finds the vial, which turns out to be the toxin from Alex's lab. He says he found it on the floor and goes to the bathroom. He calls Carla and informs her that someone dug out his vial and put it in the morgue. She is terrified, thinking that someone has found out about their plan. After the conversation, he approaches the window and finds the invitation to a restaurant where he and Mica were supposed to go out to dinner. On the back of the invitation is a sentence Carla texted him one night: "I close my eyes and you are still with me." In the meantime, the inspector continues to investigate and speculates that the suspect entered through the air vent, cut the power to the cameras, and extracted the woman's body through the air vent. In the end, the suspect changed the date on the wall calendar and the code on the door lock before leaving. Alex looks at the date and immediately recognizes it. He'd put the same code on his laboratory door and remembers how his wife had once seen the code and, knowing her husband's habits, tried to guess what the date meant to him. Suddenly, the fire alarm goes off in the institute. Everybody runs away to find the source of the fire, and Alex calls Carla again and tells her that somebody changed the code of the morgue door with the date of their meeting, which his wife might have known about in her lifetime. And after seeing his mistress's tag, he begins to suspect that Mica is alive and knows everything about them, so he and his lover are now in danger. Soon after, the inspector returns to the room and takes Alex's phone away. Later, we find out from the examination of the toxin taken from the vial that it is used for medicine production, but in its pure form, it can cause a heart attack without leaving any trace. Now everything makes sense to the inspector, and he orders the suspect to be locked up in the room next door to the morgue. Now alone, Alex hears his wife's favorite song in the morgue. Upon entering the room, he approaches the body bag of Javier Alonso, and finds a phone on which Micah is calling. The man picks up the phone and hears a creepy sound, after which someone hangs up. Alex calls his wife's number back, but the waitress at the restaurant where they were supposed to go, picks it up and says that someone left the smartphone there this evening. Alex gets suspicious that someone is helping his wife and remembers a man he once saw in that restaurant, whom Micah refers to as her psychoanalyst. He tells his troubled lover about his suspicions, and then the detective comes to talk to him. Jamie accuses the detainee of poisoning his wife and stealing her corpse in order to hide the evidence. The detective asks Alex to tell him how he and Micah met and learns that it happened purely by chance 10 years ago on an island where they were both vacationing. The inspector recalls Alex's words that he was at the drugstore when the cops visited his house and asks to see the medicines he purchased, which he, of course, doesn't have. The suspect is then shown the file of private investigator Javier Alonso, who was hired by the suspect's wife before he died. The file shows that Alex was caught cheating on his wife, which breaks their marriage contract and could be the reason for the murder. Alex remembers the bag with Javier Alonso's name and goes with the inspector to the morgue, where he finds out that the nameplate is no longer there. Alex goes to the bathroom and tells Carla about the private investigator. The girl reveals that someone put this man's flash drive in an anonymous envelope under the door, in which are her photos with Alex and a recorded conversation in which they discuss the details of Micah's murder. Now, the man is definitively sure that his wife is alive and asks Carla to leave the house. The frightened girl goes outside, but a car starts driving toward her in the street, and the call ends. Alex, in a panic, asks to go out to help Carla but is turned down, after which he finally tells the inspector about his relationship with the girl. She was his student when he was still working as a chemistry teacher but was already married to Micah. Since Carla didn't want to be just a mistress, he poisoned his wife with cardiotoxin and made it look like a heart attack caused by the stress of the aviophobia that Micah allegedly suffered. Nevertheless, after the events of the previous night, Alex is sure that Micah is still alive. He advances the theory that Micah knew about his relationship with Carla and the murder that was going to happen, so she set it up by taking heart-slowing cardiotoxins and neuroleptics, and now she wants revenge. Meanwhile, the police inform Jamie that they found a morgue map, an electronic manual, a lock, a balaclava, gloves, a gun, and a shovel in Alex's house. The night watchman eventually comes to his senses and reveals what happened that night. While he was on duty, he heard rumbling from the morgue and went up there to find that one of the corpses was missing. He saw the corpse in the elevator before someone brought it down, and then someone in a balaclava came up and started shooting at the watchman, after which he ran out of the building. The inspector immediately makes the claim that, according to the evidence, that man in the mask was Alex, to which he replies that his wife had an accomplice who helped her fake her death. Alex asks to find Carla and see if she is still alive so she can confirm his alibi. Jamie sends a police squad to his mistress's apartment, and he goes with Alex to the woods, where the police have already found the buried body of Micah Villaverde. To the shock of the suspect, the inspector adds that the apartment where Carla allegedly resides is completely empty and no one is living there. In addition, there's no student by that name at the institute. Jamie orders the police to take the body for examination, and when they are alone with the suspect, Alex tries to escape in despair. But after a while, he gets ill and asks to call an ambulance, but the inspector ignores his situation and reveals the shocking truth. 10 years ago, his wife was killed in a car accident, and the perpetrators of that accident were Alex and Micah, who immediately fled the scene of the accident without calling the ambulance, who could still have saved his wife. Unfortunately, Jamie didn't notice the license plate, but his daughter, who was sitting in the back seat, noticed a cent with the name of the Avalon Hotel on it. It took the inspector 10 years to find these particular hotel guests, but his daughter wasn't sure if they were Alex and Micah, so she decided to become Alex's mistress. One day, Alex talked about the accident with her, and then Carla provoked her lover with scandals to get rid of Micah. In the end, Alex poisoned his wife with the substance that kills a person 8 hours after entering the body and leaves no trace. What is even more shocking is that this is the same drug that Carla used to poison Alex the night she received the call from the police. Also, all this time, the person who stole Micah's body was Inspector Jamie. Then, together with his daughter, they filled Alex's car with all the tools that would later confirm his guilt. They did this so that Alex would go crazy and admit killing his wife during the investigation. After that, he would have a heart attack caused by stress and die 8 hours later. Indeed, that's really what happens, and Alex takes his last breath.